welcome to Sound Advice. I am Game Goth, and this is Alex.
Oh my god, hi!
Hello, Alex, thanks again for joining us.
You ain't welcome.
Today, we are kind of delving back into a topic we have previously visited, industrial music.
Yeah.
And the last time we talked about industrial music, it was based in San Francisco in the 80s, and it was, I believe you coined it as primal industrial, and this time it is primordial industrial.
Yeah, even more primal than primal.
It's the ooze before, it's the prokaryotes before the eukaryotes.
You sound like a science textbook, but you sound like you're right on with that, I think.
This predates what we talked about before.
It does, some of it not by much, some of it by, a substantial enough amount of time to obviously have had an influence on what we're listening to from San Francisco.
So who's up first?
First we've got a band called Cabaret Voltaire from England, and their song from 1978 right here called Do the Mussolini, head kick.
Great. And 3, 2, 1, play. Let's give it a second. Okay. I feel like I'm scrolling down the street in a cartoon world.
Me too. But there's something slightly wrong with this cartoon world.
Yes.
Let's take it off.
So, I feel as though synthesizers and electric music, that probably had a lot to do with the explosion of the industrial scene, yes or no?
I think that is absolutely 100%. It wouldn't exist. Industrial music wouldn't exist without analog synthesizers. Like Moog synthesizers, ARPs, these synthesizers that are just like, they're created by these geeky dudes and that are just completely crazy circuit bending situations that you can use and do pretty much whatever you want with them and create crazy just peals of heretofore unheard sound and noise.
I see videos today where people have their synthesizer boards and they have all these, it looks like the old telephone switch circuits, and so what was the first, who did it first? Is it these bands or was there someone before them and then they adopted it slowly afterwards?
I think the most prominent band that did it was Roxy Music with Brian Eno. He was their synthesizer, the keyboardist, really, and he made a point of using a lot of analog synthesizer technology with those switchboards and things like that. He'd be up on stage with the band. He was the most flamboyant looking one out of all of them, and he'd be up there messing with, looking like some sort of mad scientist, engineer, messing with this thing, but yet he'd have this crazy, wild, bouffant, crazy looking hairdo. He looked like some sort of weird queer or something, and playing with the band Roxy Music, who were basically like a glam rock band, What he added to the music was sort of just these flourishes, though, and I think that was sort of maybe one big introduction to the mainstream of these kind of instruments, as well as like prog rock.
What year was Roxy Music in their heyday, and then what year was Cabaret Voltaire in theirs?
Roxy Music was probably early mid 70s, and that was their heyday, and then Cabaret Voltaire got going in the late 70s, 77, 78, really early for this kind of music, but it was really them and Throbbing Gristle.
Term to try to put into words the sounds, or as you said, Sheffield was an industrial area, so did it actually have to do more with the location?
I think it was, and I really hope I'm right saying that Throbbing Gristle was from Sheffield. I'm pretty sure they were, but they might not have. One of the two of those bands was from Sheffield. I'm almost certain.
Uh-oh, your credibility's on the line.
My credibility should never have been established in the first place, and if I ever gave anyone the impression that I'm credible or do anything like research, I apologize. In any case, what was the question again?
Oh, why is it called industrial?
Oh, why is it called industrial? Well, really, I think it was Throbbing Gristle, who we'll listen to next, who started using that term. They had their own record label called Industrial Records, and it was sort of like a manifesto as part of their belief system. That band, they started out as like an art troupe, essentially, doing really fucking bizarre performance art and conceptual art stuff.
Let's play the song and continue talking.
Let's listen to Hamburger Lady. It's really, really a trip. In any case, they were sort of the ones who first started using the term, and I think it describes both the sort of overall atmosphere of life at the time, especially in like Thatcher's in England, or soon to be Thatcher's England, as well as the sort of, obviously the sound of the music, which is there's a lot of mechanized things going on.
Let's play it.
Okay.
In 3, 2, 1, play. Hamburger Lady.
Hamburger Lady.
Is Throbbing Gristle still around today?
They're not. Unfortunately, the one of the key members of the band, the singer,
died.
Yes, Genesis Porridge. May God rest their soul. It has now departed. Brilliant human being, absolute like philosopher, and really somebody who just had a great sense of humor, but also was a complete thorn in the side of a lot of people. This band was, trouble from the start because they were controversial. They were associated with controversial stuff. They were really like
what kinds of controversial things?
Oh, they were just the art performances that they did were involved nudity or sex or like performances of said things and really upset a lot of, I think it was like parliamentarians at the time in England. One of them called this band Wreckers of Civilization, which when you listen to, first of all, like what better endorsement? A music critic couldn't have said it better themselves. But this person was actually a conservative politician who truly thought that this band was a threat. But damn, like that's like the highest compliment I could imagine to be called that. And when you listen to their music, and this is like the sound of civilization like crumbling. It's a soundtrack to that. Like this song is.
This seems rather tame. Are there heavy on sugar or heavy on?
Which somebody tells you there's a level of pain beyond which the human mind, beyond which the level of pain, with a heavy big lady on the rocking chair, and relieving her through the waist down, That's what keeps her alive with the tube, on the night nurse, the Hamburger lady, Hamburger lady. He was okay. I did change the tubes in the legs, tubes in her arms, and he managed okay. And then he came out. He saw one of the burn nurses sat at the desk. He was eating a can of chili mac, and it flashed on the carpet, it flashed on the floor.
Experiment for them, to sort of see how they could push their audience and what they could do with like, with being sort of a radical, experimental, like post-punk band that was contemporary with a lot of the punk that was happening at the time, and they're just very weird people.
Did the punk bands like the industrial bands?
I think the cool ones almost certainly would have had to. There was never like a question. If you're doing something that was as out there as this, I think like the right people got it, and the wrong people were like, that's gay or whatever.
Sure.
And like, cool. There was also a guy in this band who was gay. Peter Christopherson was his name.
Pumpkin eater.
Huh. He might have been. But he started another band called Coil with another gay dude. Gay band members have always been part of industrial, just as punk had a lot of gay performers too. And I think that's cool. More queers, more weird queers who were just really like unapologetically bizarre people, and me myself being a homosexual of the homosexual variety and orientation.
Sure, yeah.
And style, I appreciate it, especially being like an idiotic weirdo as well. So,
are you on the spectrum, Alex?
I mean the spectrum of being fucking a piece of shit, a turd. Flush me already. Come on, Game Goth. Put me out of my miseries. Let's do this kind of music as well. Let's do it all the time. What the fuck? What are you doing, dude?
I think you're all right.
Thank you.
Hey, man. I think you're
all right,
doing
too.
just fine.
Thank you so much. So that song was about a lady who got burned really badly, and the doctor's description of her was that she'd become a hamburger lady. She looked like burnt meatloaf.
Cool. I didn't even get a chance to surmise that because we had talked all the way through
We
it.
really yapped our way through that one.
So this next band, SPK, where are they from?
Yeah, SPK. I've been really digging them lately, even though I've known about them for years, kind of rediscovering them. They're from initially Sydney, Australia, who had another really cool industrial band called Severed Heads, but they came a little bit later. And SPK was really on the bleeding edge of like a honed attack of jarring noise, but they also incorporate. So this is where you're going to start hearing more of the clanging and distortion and the really sort of more disturbing. I mean, Hamburger Ladies is a rather disturbing song.
Yes.
But SPK took the sort of disturbing nature potential of industrial music and amped it up. So you're still going to hear weird like synthesizer elements to this, but there's going to be a whole nother layer of intensity that is pretty terrifying, if you're listening to it in a dark room by yourself. Or
And did these so this band making what we're about to listen to,
their
well,
racket.
let's listen to it,
Yeah, okay.
and then I'll ask my question in 3, 2, 1.
I mean, there's a lot to say about this band, but we'll just
We'll give it a second.
Yeah, let's
Sounds like a video game.
yeah. Lights go on. Oh, God.
Ooh, the video is gnarly. So, would it be correct to say that this band had created the sound independent of the previous two bands we listened to, or were these things happening separately in the world, cropping up at the same time in a collective unconscious sort of way, or like would these people have been in contact with the same influences that would have ultimately led to this anyway?
I think they ultimately would have. Almost certainly. I'm going to say that, but I'm just going to also just say certainly SPK was aware of and listening to Throbbing, Gristle, and Cabaret, Voltaire. SPK. It's important that I should note they also moved to England for a while. They were a very international band. Like the dude Graham Reval, who started the band, originally born in New Zealand, moved to Australia, then moved to England. A lot of their songs they just like sing in German because I guess German is like extremely fun to like be an industrial band and like have these sort of bizarre sort of like songs where you sing in German. It's fun. But in any case, yeah, I mean they all listen to a lot of the same initial influences too, like krautrock, like I mentioned, bands like Kraftwerk and Faust and experimental music. And so these are some of the first noise artists as well, like people who are, noise and industrial really are essentially the same thing. And this is a band that really demonstrates to you how you can use these piercing, intonations that God knows how they're creating this, almost certainly using synthesizers to do it and stuff and make it palatable, I think. And in the structure of this song, I think it's brilliant. And the dude that I mentioned, Graham Reval, went on to become a film scorer. So he's done like the Tomb Raider movie. He's done like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie.
Oh wow!
He went from this. So he's always been a sound artist, right? He went from this to that. Also, I think it's important to mention that like the subject matter that was like obsessed upon by bands like this and Throbbing Gristle often was like, really like disturbing crap and bizarre sort of out there ideas. SPK was like they named themselves after the Socialist Patient Collective, which was a German group of radical leftists who were mental patients who believe that capitalism is the actual illness, and they can use their supposed mental illness or physical ailments as a weapon against capitalism. So there's all these, it's very conceptual, all these ideas going on, but it manifested ultimately in this very, very confrontational, out there, left field music. SPK was also like fascinated with like autopsies, so you'll see gross autopsy footage on their record covers, and they would project it during shows, and it was all about like being confrontational and disgusting and like scaring the shit out of everyone, and yet it was this pulsating psychedelic experience at the same time. Like a song like this kind of shows you that. I think the song like this also is sort of the birth of another genre called power electronics that came really closely after this, but that's a whole nother discussion. And as a genre, I don't know that it's really worth discussing as much as this is, because
You see, why not?
well, it's just kind of one note. Power electronics is kind of like does one thing, and the idea is kind of like spent after one iteration of it, but yet there's a very huge power behind this power electronic style of music, and people are still making it to this day. But it's kind of confined to a certain.
What's like a main? What would be a power electronics band that we all would know?
White House.
I don't
one
know
you should all know, I guess.
I don't, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
They're probably the most well-known one. I mean, and this is such a niche genre, I guess, that like if you've heard of a power electronics band, you're already like a dork or a weirdo, record collector.
Am I going to lose my goth card for not knowing White House?
No, I think White House is beyond, is beyond the sort of proscribed, what I would say would be proscribed for any self-respecting goth. All four of the bands we just listened to, however, I think are important because they are essentially goth. All the three bands we just listened to are essentially goth, and probably no more than the next one we're going to listen to, mainly because of the way that the lead singer of this next band, whose name is Blixa Bargeld, presented himself and how he looked, and his whole aesthetic alone was just absolutely like prime goth, but in a very fucking like punk new wave way. And this band is also sort of, you'll see a lot of their iconography, their logo among the goth tribes out there, I think. The goth tribalists. It's like a popular tattoo, the logo of the next band.
Let me see if I can pronounce this correctly again. Einstürzende Neubauten.
Yes, it's Einstürzende Neubauten, which means collapsing new buildings in the German tongue. So.
And 3, 2, 1, play. So we've gone to London, we've gone to Australia, and now we're in Germany.
Now we are in Germany for real, yeah. These guys were a bunch of West German, just weirdo, artsy folks who got together to bang on. They literally were the ones who started really like what a lot of people recognize as industrial, which is right off the bat, which is banging on shit, clanging on stuff, and
when they were creating this, the wall was up.
Yeah, it was. So that must have been a huge influence living in that sort of, era of Berlin.
Do you think for them, was any of their music, was it influential in a very direct way, or maybe in a more subconscious way, where they're not making music about the situation they're in, but the fact that they're in this situation will ultimately have an effect?
I think it's, they would be the last people to say that they're not going to acknowledge that, the situation they're in is affecting the music that they play. However, there's probably not a lot of intentionality behind that. I think it was just a natural outgrowth of like, the shitty fucked up time, that was the late 70s, early 80s. And also just like all great German bands, this band is all about liberation from the constraints of, society and regimented sort of thought. Like the ultimate anti-fascist music is like the krautrock bands like Einstürzende Neubauten. They're turning music around and doing something completely different with it. It's super primal. I mean, they sound like fucking primates banging on like, modern machinery, and like that combination, especially in a song like this, It's also like it's not as revoltingly like almost sinister as like an SPK song or as
This is compared to the other songs, it's like wind chimes.
it's like wind chimes, exactly. It's like gamelan sort of thing, So it's like got this. I mean, it's very smart. What these people are doing, it's always very smart, but it comes out as this outburst or this puking of sound. But that's primordial industrial, and I think that's why this music's super powerful, and that's why industrial became this genre that exists to this day and took on many manifestations. But I think it was really the power of these four bands, specifically Cabaret, Voltaire, Throbbing, Gristle, and Einstürzende, Neubauten. SPK unfortunately has never gotten their due, but a lot of people still know about them. Regardless, those big three, they were like the big three who really sort of just kicked off, a lot of industrial bands to follow them, and also became definitive of a sort of strain of goth too, being dark, weird, having a fucked up, chopped up haircut, and just throwing up two middle fingers to the world, and wearing a lot of black, and just doing your own thing,
Are you familiar with any of like, say, clubs or actual locations in Germany that were? Because I believe that in London there were important places to the. Well, like, is it CBGB in New York? And in London you had what was the goth? There was like a goth bar in London that was.
Yeah,
it was a very on the nose name. It was like it might have been called the Bat Cave.
Oh, really?
Or I don't know, but so in Germany, in Berlin, were there places like that that were hubs of a scene such as this?
I'm almost certainly there were.
Well, do you know them?
I don't know them off. I couldn't list them. I couldn't even name you one. But I will tell you that I feel like at this point in 1981, when this band just started going, it didn't matter because they would play in the middle of a field or in the street, or they would play, for instance, where they recorded this record, which apparently was in the middle of a freeway pylon or a highway. They recorded.
They brought the
gear. Bunker.
They brought the gear there and just recorded the album there.
Yep. And
Why?
so it's like, because it's just total freedom to do it anywhere you're at, and just to be an anarcho-primitivist, modernist.
Did it also have a direct effect on the acoustics and the sound?
I think that would almost certainly, absolutely be the case.
Yes.
Yeah. And it probably added a lot to it, And they got this natural reverb and stuff out of that.
Feel silly for even asking that question.
You fool. It's okay. I mean, listen, this is a conversation. It's not just me talking about shit I'm even fucking talking about. Anyway, so that was Einstürzende Neubauten. Now, I would also mention it's probably not even a definitive song. It's hard to pick a definitive song of theirs. They have a lot of more intense grating, very grating songs, which I don't really enjoy as much as like that one, because that one just, it's got that perfect sort of chime element to it. So
well, that will be up to you to delve further into the primordial industrial goo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
go get messy, go get lost in it, and try not to swallow too much of it.
I know you've rambled quite a bit, Alex, which is exactly what I wanted out of you. But any final thoughts to wrap up this genre? Then you don't. If you don't have anything, that's fine.
No, what can be said? There's nothing to say. I probably said too much already, except for that maybe next time we'll do something a little bit less harsh and inhospitable to the ear holes, but probably not.
So perhaps I should have these prepared before. Perhaps these primordial industrial bangings shattered your eardrums, or maybe they've. This will be the new thing you use to lull your candy ass to sleep. Either way, this has been Sounded Bites.